From 1962, that was Jimmy Clanton with Venus in Blue Jeans. Jimmy Clanton burst onto the music scene in 1958 with his hit Just a Dream, and soon enough, more hits followed, culminating in film work and a performing career that continues to this day. Mr. Clanton, welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir.
I'd like to take you right back to your high school days in Louisiana and your first band, the Rockets, and the recording of your first hit single, Just a Dream. Now, when you wrote that song, were you writing it with the intention of making a record, or were you just writing a song just to write a song?
Oh, my gosh. I was killing some time in the living room of my house. Now, people have to remember something. It is unbelievable the things that were not invented in 1957, 58. Uh-huh. There was no such thing as a cassette recorder.
Right.
Anything you did with music, with songs, you had to memorize them or write it out. There was no such thing as a photocopy machine.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was killing some time actually in the living room, and I was in the middle of my first love, and she and I were having a lot of arguments, and the bottom line is that I was just killing time and thinking about her and thinking about how we make up, break up, and so forth. And I actually wrote that song in about 20 minutes, and had only written maybe one song before in my life that I never paid attention to. And that song was just in the back of my mind. Somehow or another, I never forgot it. Now, how I came about recording it is kind of a long story. The girlfriend of the fella that was the keyboard player for the Rockets, she came to him one day and said, "Did you know that there is a recording studio in New Orleans?" Now, I was living in Baton Rouge. I was raised in Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. And she said, for $25, you can get a whole full hour of recording time so you all can hear what your band sounds like. Now, at that time, I was only desiring to be a guitar player. I loved the guitar, and I was an incredible guitar player at 16, 17, and 18. In fact, I was told I was the very best white guitar player in that whole part of Louisiana. But the way I got around to singing was the band before the Rockets. I was just playing guitar, and I overheard a conversation. This is out of context now. And I heard the guy that headed up the band. He said, "Well, we pay him," whoever the fellow was, he said, "we pay him $5 a night extra because he sings." And I went, "Oh, wow." Now, you and I have to remember, $5 back in 1956 went a long way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I went to Dick Holler, who was the piano player. I said, "By the way," I said, "you've been doing all the singing for the whole night for the band." And I said, I wouldn't mind helping you out with a song here and there. However, the other band that I used to play with, the guy that did some singing, he got an extra $5 a night more. So Dick said, okay. So we go to that studio, and Dick does all the singing. And all of a sudden, he said, "Okay, that's it. No more." Talk about a script from Happy Days. This is exactly what happened. So all of a sudden, the engineer said, "Well, look, you're paying for a whole hour," and he said, "You still got 5 or 6 minutes more. You don't have anything more?" And Dick, I know, is this not wild? And Dick Holler said, "Well, no, I really don't have anything." And I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden he turned over to me, and he said, "Jimmy, do you have anything?" I said, "Well, I got this song that, just kind of a song here for what we call a 4-chord change." And so the engineer said, "Well, you got that extra time." Now, this was actually a song called "I Trusted You." I trust. So we went back home to Baton Rouge and picked up where we left off with our engagements and so forth. And about a week and a half later, I got a phone call at my home. Now, they must have called Dick Holler and gotten my number from him, because I didn't. You know, that's before cell phones. all I had was a home number. And I get on the phone, and it's a guy named Johnny Vincent from Ace Records. And he said, I just happened to walk into the studio. Now, think about this. Come to find out, this was the iconic rock and roll studio for the whole that whole part of the United States. Right. That's where Fats Domino recorded, Lloyd Price, Little Richard, you know, all of these big artists, but we didn't know that. And what are the chances of this guy, Johnny Vincent, he's getting ready to do a session for Ace Records, that he would come in just about the time that there is a replay that he hears from this kid from Baton Rouge? Well, whatever reason it was, maybe the good Lord had his hand upon this even that far back. He called me and he said, I just wanted to call you, and I overheard this song. I heard you sing it. And he said, I like the sound of it. Make a long story short, okay. He said, would you come talk to me? So I drove to New Orleans, and lo and behold, the bottom line was, he says, I'd like to sign you to a recording contract, but I don't want the band. I want just you. And I thought, well, you know, I never thought about doing in recording. I mean, who ever thought such a thing that far back, you know? So I said, well, sure, okay. So I went back and told the band, I'm just going to make this recording, and then we can utilize that as a great tool to promote our band. So that's what happened. We put out that song, and for about 6 months it was around, and then Johnny Vincent called me back. He said, we need to record some new stuff, and he said, have you written anything? Well, that's when it came up that I had written this song called Just a Dream, and again, it's about my girlfriend. She and I kept breaking up. Right. So I went back into the studio, and I said, well, I got this little song here, you know, and so come to find out, the band that he wanted me to play with to record was the band that backed up Fats Domino and all of the big names.
Wow.
The most intriguing thing that I will never, ever forget, that many years ago, the horn player who worked with all the big names, I taught them the song, Just a Dream, and he looked over at me after we stopped, and he said, that's a hit. And, you know, it didn't occur to me, but lo and behold, part two of this story is just mind-boggling, how a career exploded overnight for me from that song.
Just a dream.
That was our guest today, Jimmy Clanton, with his number 4 pop hit, number 1 R&B hit, Just a Dream, 1958. And it must have seemed like just a dream, because immediately that record hits and you find yourself on television doing American Bandstand.
Yeah, well, what happened is that I didn't come from a middle class or even a lower middle class. I was just on the 5% positive side of being poor. So TV was not even something we thought about. I mean, that's an expensive thing, you know. Johnny Vincent calls me from Ace Records, and he said, look, I've got you a performance shot on a new TV show called American Bandstand. And he said, it's really the rave of America, this guy named Dick Clark. And he said, you pack up some stuff, and he said, I'm sending you to Philadelphia. Now, the most incredible thing is that I'd never been out of Louisiana or Alabama, Mississippi right there. Never been on an airplane, that's for darn sure. And Philadelphia was, that's saying to me the same as going to Mars, you know? And, yeah. And so here I was, this 18-year-old kid, and they fly me to Philadelphia. And I don't think they really knew what I looked like, because there was no such thing as, email, sure. No such thing as UPS, overnight mail, no photocopy. And so I didn't know this, but I'll just go ahead and say it now. From what I understand back then, the girls thought I was a real good-looking kid. And so I guess that's what happened, because I walked in and I went up there and got on that stage to do them. And it's like, man, I thought they were going to absolutely just attack me, you know?
Right.
And I'm thinking, maybe my clothes are not on correctly or something. It was totally brand new. I went back home, and unbeknownst to me, Johnny Vincent the next day got orders for over 100,000 copies of that song. Within a week, I'm on an airplane going to New York, signing with a major booking agency. Within 2 weeks, I'm booked with Alan Freed. Within a month, I am already barnstorming pretty much around the country with all these big road shows, and it was just literally overnight. It was mind-boggling.
From 1960, Jimmy Clanton with Another Sleepless Night. Mr. Clanton joins us today, and you can join him online, either at his website, jimmyclanton.com, or on Facebook. He's got several pages over on Facebook. Mr. Clanton, we were talking about your first big hit, Just a Dream, and how it launched your career, and that could have been the end of the story, like it was for so many other performers. But you kept going. You had more hits after that.
That's very true. And interestingly enough, as we kind of really fast forward this, once Beatlemania and the English Invasion hit, everybody knows that just put such a stop on our kind of music, you know. But there was that few years there where everything was just kind of dormant when it comes to our sound. I feel the fans have all said the same thing, that our era, from especially from 1956 to 1962 for me, when I came out with Venus and Blue Jeans, that was absolutely the greatest time of all these great 50s and early 60s love songs. And I cut it off at 62 because I'm very, very matter of fact that the English Invasion and Beatlemania, and then from there the Rolling Stones, and then the heavy metal, that all, I guess for me, here was the litmus test. Back then, I heard somebody say, well, you know, Alice Cooper was on stage, and he wrung the head of a chicken off on stage. Right. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm out of here. If this is what is now considered entertainment and what fans buy tickets to see, I'm out of here. And I just, I backed away from all of that. But for whatever reason, I stayed popular. And where it really showed me I was still popular is when this thing Facebook comes along. And all of a sudden, you know, I've got like 7,000 fans on 2 different pages of Facebook. And I've, you know, just last year, I did a one-man concert series in Bangkok, Thailand.
Right.
Yeah. And I've been all over Australia. I've been to the Philippines, and all these countries knew Jimmy Clanton and knew my music. And the thing that I have to admit is that I never felt that I was a doo-wop singer. I wasn't a Philadelphia sound. I always kept my what we call the swamp pop, which is a combination of rock and roll and rhythm and blues. And the key was, with all my songs, I always had horn sections. And so I've always felt that I still have the roots from down there in Louisiana, you know, and the kind of songs that I recorded, even though I felt like I was always a love song singer, that it still had those Louisiana swamp pop roots. And that's what my fans have always liked, and maybe that's what made me a little bit different. I'm not sure, but anyway, to this very day, you know, I'm preparing to go down to Louisiana. I'm going to do another one-man concert down there. But I'm pretty much semi-retired, to be honest with you. I've just got a few things coming up this year. And I do have a new CD, though, that I'm very proud of. of especially my songwriting. Like I say, I create with the songwriting, and then I illustrate as I sing my own songs. And people will be able to find out about that through either Facebook, with Jimmy Clanton on Facebook, or I've got $1 million website, jimmyclanton.com. I mean, it's really a phenomenal website. But I'm really, really proud of this new music that's getting ready to come out within the next 60 days. So.
And I should mention, just for the audience, you were recently here in the New Jersey area, but you're coming back to New York April 1st and 2nd.
Well, there is a show over there. It's the Lars Productions, Rob Albanese, and there is a 2-day thing that he does at the Hop Hog, and that's once a year, and people come from all over the world for that big show. It's like so many of the different artists from the 50s and 60s. But, the thing is that all of us from that original day, I mean, we're all up in our age. I'm 78 years old now, and I've been blessed to have good health, and I've been also blessed that my voice has not changed, and my voice is as good as ever, thank God. But physically, it's not easy at our age now with all the traveling, So that's primarily what has happened, and so many have not been able to come from all over the country to do that show as artists, because a lot of them are already passed away, and a lot of them are not physically healthy. And so, our era is, and our fan base, they're my age as well. So it's just something that we all deal with, the physical disability and the financial ability to go to all of these shows, and anyway, it's just something that we have to face. We as artists of that era, and also as fans from that era at our age, But
well, I bet the people that do get to go to those shows are just thrilled to see you.
It's interesting. As I travel, back when I was at my heyday as a teen idol, I couldn't get out of the dressing room to go meet and greet fans because I would get ripped apart. So what I've done over the last 20 years is wherever I do shows, I make a point of meeting and greeting the fans one-on-one and taking pictures with them, because I've had so many of them saying, Jimmy, I saw you back so-and-so, but I couldn't even get close, much less ever even getting a hug or a kiss on the cheek,
Right.
And so that's all changed now, and so that's the great, wonderful part for me. And I've got so many incredible stories. Do you have time for one more?
Sure, go right ahead.
This is a mind-boggling story about Just a Dream. I was in Philadelphia, outskirts, and I'd finished up a show, and I had some product, and we had been selling, and it was getting dark, and out of the shadows, a guy comes up to me, a big, bulky guy, a brawny guy, kind of with a Fu Manchu, longer hair, and steel gray eyes, whatever, and he walked over, and he put his hand out, and he grabbed my hand and shook it and held onto it. And he said, I have been waiting for this for so long. And I'm thinking, oh, wow. I hope it's a good thing, And here's the story. He never took his eyes off of me. He never let go of my hand. He said, Jimmy, I was in Vietnam and I got captured. And he said, I won't tell you or describe to you the things they did to me. He said, but I will tell you this. After a period of time, they came for me for my time of torture. And he said, I knew that if I didn't come up with something to come up and out of myself, he said, I'm gone, because I couldn't last any longer with this kind of torture. And he said, this one day when they came for me, and he said, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, what kind of thought, what can I think of that can take me out, I guess, to get away from the pain.
Right.
And he's staring at me. His eyes are like lasers. And he said, all of a sudden, he said, I went out in the spirit, and he said, I saw you on stage, and you were singing Just a Dream. And he said, the next thing I know, they let me go, and it was my time to go back to the cell. And so I got through it. He said, but then the next day they came again. And he said, I thought, okay, this time, he said, I'm going to think about it. And he said, when I thought about it and came up out of myself, you brought me up on stage and had me sing Just a Dream with you, and then I sang it by myself. And he said, the next thing I know, he said, they passed over me the next day. He said, because they thought I was crazy, and so they would not do anything more to me after that. And he said, I just want you to know, Jimmy, I've been looking for you after I finally got escaped. He said, I thought if I ever got a chance to see you again, that I could shake your hand and thank you that you were the reason for my being alive to get out of there. And he turned around and walked away.
Wow. What an incredible story.
He said, you saved my life. And his name is Richie Morris, and he's got all kinds of degrees, and he's now Dr. Richie Morris. And he's the real deal, yeah. And so, I've got a lot of stories about Just a Dream, but there's nothing that comes close to that one,
Yeah, well, it sounds like maybe recording that song was serving a higher purpose.
There's no question that, well, I'll just tell you right up front, I was, several years ago, I was driving on the road, and out of the clear blue with no warning, I heard this very loud in my spirit. You thought you wrote Just a Dream, but I wrote it. And it was the Spirit of God that spoke to me. And I pulled off to the side of the road. I was so taken aback. And God said to me, he said, I knew that this song would bring you notoriety. And then as the years progressed, he said, I would be able to use you in such a way as to let people know that I was behind all of this. And that has been the case.
Absolutely. It's an incredible story, and I hope that maybe sometime in the future you can come back and talk about some other aspects of your career.
Well, I think people would find that the next aspect will give you goosebumps of the first degree. My whole career has been one of a coin, heads on one side, tails on the other. The head side was from 1957 to 1980. That covered all of my musical career.
Right.
But then the B side, the other side of the coin, has been my career of what happened in 1980 to the present.
I want to thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us today. And all the best to you. Take care and have a great rest of your day, sir.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
No, I'll never